The sweetest part was the first smile. In the end, I'll tell you the phrase I wish I had said. Dear daughter, it's dark outside, and the silence seems to wrap everything like a heavy cloak. I'm writing this so you don't repeat the choices I made. Back then, I was lost. An emptiness inside me screamed for fulfillment. When he looked me in the eyes and said I was special, I believed him. I wanted to believe that something so rare could keep me safe. It was a summer night. The stars twinkled with an almost painful intensity, and his voice sounded like music. But soon after, that glowing compliment turned into a shadow. Then came the first condition, something that seemed small, disguised as affection. He said, I just want you to tell me where you are. And I, naive, thought it was love. Here's the truth. What sounded like concern was really subtle control. And then, I ignored it, as if that rule only showed care. Each time he asked, my freedom diminished a bit more. It felt like being trapped in a wire mesh, where the spaces slowly closed in around me. I didn't realize the weight of it until it became a habit. That's when other demands came, each one more insidious than the last. If you really care, you will. The pressure mounted, and I felt guilty for wanting space. Silence followed. I made excuses, tried to justify, but deep down, I knew something was profoundly wrong, and I didn't realize. I was losing myself. Confusion took over my mind. What was love and what was control? The lines between affection and possessiveness began to blur, and the guilt. Oh, the guilt settled in like a persistent shadow. The line I wish I had said at the right moment. I am free, and I am not available to be monitored. A simple phrase that could have changed everything. The truth is that boundaries are essential. They protect our essence. And I learned that the hard way. The next time you notice a request disguised as affection, take a moment. If you feel pressured, seek clarity. Boundaries are not barriers to love. They are pillars of respect. In my next journal entry, I'll share how confusion turned into a decisive choice that changed my life. That initial smile became a mask, hiding what was to come. What I thought was protection soon transformed into shackles. He didn't just want to know where I was. He wanted me to be nowhere else but by his side. The incessant messages started to feel normal. I'm thinking of you. Underneath, a longing. A request disguised as a demand for constant attention. Over time, I realized that each message was a reminder that I was his property. And I didn't see it. There was one particular night that is etched in my memory. We were at a party, the music pulsing like a racing heart, and for a moment, freedom felt possible. But then, when I stepped away to chat with a friend, he appeared. The look in his eyes had an intensity that made my stomach turn. It wasn't love. It was possessiveness. What were you talking about with her? His voice held a tone of accusation and concern. I said it was just a casual conversation, but the way he took my arms made me feel as if I were being interrogated. And then, doubt crept in. What did I do wrong? And I didn't realize that all those smiles were traps, leading me into a deeper hole. The rules began to pile up, like layers of oil in a hot pan, each one more insidious than the last. Soon, it didn't make sense to argue. My voice started to fade away, drowned by the fear of what might happen if I spoke up. He began to make suggestions about what I should wear, who I should hang out with, and I thought that was love. The small gestures, the little changes, everything seemed harmless. But deep down, in that part of me that still screamed for freedom, I knew I was wrong. One day, while organizing some things around the house, I found a box of old love letters. Words that once made me dream now felt like a cruel joke. The echo of passion turned into an agonizing sound of insecurity. I looked at those yellowed pages and saw what it truly was, a story of stealthy despair. It was at that moment that I realized I had stopped living my life. I was always waiting for the next message, the next approval, and I didn't notice that I was carrying a weight that wasn't mine. What should have been love had turned into a self-imposed prison. I started to question everything. That perfect smile, that first moment that made me so vulnerable. It was a magic trick. He had charmed me, and, at the same time, trapped me inside a tragic comedy. I finally gathered the courage to speak up. On an ordinary day, in a seemingly trivial moment, I told him I needed space. His reaction was immediate. Dark eyes, quickened breath. He said I was being dramatic, that he only had good intentions, and the guilt came rushing back. A brutal reminder that stepping out of the shadows was hard, But what I didn't know was that this conversation would be the start of a transformation. Instead of giving up, I decided to fight. I made a list of my needs and boundaries. I looked in the mirror and said, "You deserve more." And I didn't realize that in that moment, a small flame ignited. As the days went by, small victories began to accumulate. This internal struggle wasn't easy, but the feeling of reclaiming my voice and autonomy was indescribable. I began to rewrite my story, one step at a time. There were moments when doubt returned, but now I had an anchor. I remembered the phrase I wished I had said before: "I am free." I started to repeat this as a mantra, and little by little, the weight began to lift. When I finally ended the relationship, freedom didn't come immediately. There was the echo of pain, but there was also a new kind of hope. The certainty that I was not an object to be controlled, but a soul deserving of genuine love and respect. The next time you hear someone express love through control, allow yourself to see beyond. Words can shine, but what they truly mean lies in the shadows. And know that setting boundaries is an act of self-love. In the next journal entry, I will share how this journey led me to an unexpected encounter with real, mature love. Looking back, I realized that every step taken was an act of courage hidden beneath the skin of doubt. When I finally freed myself, it felt like breathing again after being submerged underwater for a long time. But there was more to uncover within me. The scars left on the soul don't disappear easily. My days were now filled with a silence that had a bitter yet sweet taste at the same time. The echo of the past still resonated, but I was determined to transform it. And that's when a new friend entered the scene. He showed up at a cafe where I used to go to write. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with the soft sounds of music created an atmosphere that quickly became a refuge. He was sitting alone, and something about his presence drew me in. His smile was warm, free from expectations. The conversation flowed naturally. He didn't worry about where I was or who I was with. On the contrary, he seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. There was a lightness in his words, as if there was a safe space between us that didn't require proof of affection or rules to follow. And I didn't realize that with every shared laugh, a layer of distrust was peeling away. What once felt like an internal struggle was becoming a dance. He spoke about his own experiences, and each story revealed a piece of vulnerability that I had seen before, but never fully understood. His honesty began to heal the wounds I thought would never close. Over time, we learned to build a friendship that had no trace of possessiveness. He was a breath of fresh air on a stuffy day, encouraging me to explore little adventures. We went to art exhibits, walked around the city, and even attended local festivals, everything without the pressure to meet someone else's conditions. It was on a sunny afternoon that we decided to visit a park. The sky was clear, the leaves were shimmering in the sunlight, and the laughter of children playing in the distance brought a sense of normalcy I hadn't felt in years. As we walked along the stone path, he turned to me and asked an unexpected question. "What do you really want?" A moment of shock. I didn't know the answer. My goals had always been aligned with others' expectations. But in that moment, something inside me began to awaken. I thought about what I truly wanted, without fear of judgment. I wished for freedom, self-discovery, and finally, the right to choose what makes me happy. And I didn't realize that I was starting to find my own voice again. Every conversation, every shared laugh, every moment of connection added up to a journey that was leading me back to myself. But not everything was a sunny morning. Sometimes, the shadow of my past would return to haunt me. One night, while I was at home, I received a message from my ex. It was a blend of regret and manipulation. He wanted to talk, claiming that he had changed. A whirlwind of emotions washed over me. The temptation to respond was there, like a familiar echo promising comfort, but was really just an open door to pain. I remembered the promises I made to myself. I am free. That phrase echoed in my mind like a mantra, an anchor in the midst of the emotional storm. Instead of giving in, I took a deep breath and ignored the message. The decision solidified. I would not go back to living in the prison of insecurity. And then, a new reality emerged. With the support of my new friend, I began to envision a life full of possibilities. We went out more, shared dreams and plans. He not only respected my boundaries, he celebrated them. And for the first time, I allowed myself to dream. Then, I imagined a life where I could love without barriers, where I could simply be me. The walls that had once surrounded me began to crumble. Over time, I understood that loving someone didn't mean submitting to rules, but rather celebrating the freedom to be who we are. The trust we built together wasn't based on possession, but on sincerity and acceptance. I looked at him during one of our meetings and realized that true love wasn't about control. It was about encouraging authenticity. "You are amazing just the way you are," he said, and those words were like a balm for the wounds that still existed. And I didn't realize that true transformation came from accepting both the light and the darkness within me. I understood that facing fear was part of the process. I learned to make room for healthy love and to let go of what no longer served me. Each small challenge became an opportunity for growth. Next time you come across a smile that seems too perfect, remember that true beauty lies in authenticity and freedom. Love should not be a burden, but a lightness that makes us soar. In my next entry, I will share how this new perspective led me to confront my past, transforming it into a catalyst for my entire future. And then, on that sunny morning, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time: have lunch alone, to go to a place where I could hear my own thoughts without interruption. The local restaurant had a cozy atmosphere, with hanging plants and soft music playing in the background. I picked up a book and sat at a table by the window, watching the world outside. People passed by, each with their own story, their own struggles. As the pages of the book turned slowly, I realized there was a part of me that still hesitated. Doubt, that familiar shadow, whispered softly. What if you aren't worthy of the love you found? It was like having a conversation with a ghost that didn't want to go away. But I was determined. The echoes of the past would have no more power over me. So as I savored my meal, something unexpected happened. A woman approached my table. She looked tired, but her eyes sparkled with vibrant energy. "May I join you?" she asked with a warm smile. I hesitated, but then nodded. The conversation flowed easily. She shared her journey, her struggles, and how, after a toxic relationship, she had finally rediscovered herself. The instant connection surprised me. Feeling that another person was going through a similar experience to mine brought a new perspective. There, feeling her empathy, the walls I had built around me started to crumble a little more. Each word was like a key opening internal doors I thought were locked forever. The dialogue became a safe space where we could be vulnerable without fear of judgment, and I didn't realize how liberating it was to share experiences. The burden we carried became lighter as we shared our stories. Talking about the smiles that hid lies and how the masked control of affection deeply affected us was therapeutic. Like me, she realized that freedom lay in authenticity. When we said our goodbyes, a sense of hope washed over me. It wasn't just about finding love in another person, but about learning to truly love myself. As I left the restaurant, an epiphany began to form in my mind. What would it be like to view my past not as a weight, but as a tool for empowerment? And then, I realized that the scars we carry are marks of survival. Every pain, every tear, every moment of doubt transformed into wisdom. I started writing again, not just in my journal, but in the form of letters addressed to myself. Letters about forgiveness, resilience, and gratitude. Gratitude for what I learned, for the lessons that shaped who I am now. In the first of these letters, I wrote, "You don't need to apologize for being vulnerable. You were learning to protect yourself." Sending those words to my past self was a powerful act. It was a recognition of growth, a testament to the fact that I had found my way back to the light. And I didn't realize that by taking care of myself, I was creating a space for healthy love to bring even more abundance. The interactions with my new friend became deeper, and I realized that there was a kind of love that truly flourished when both felt free. In the next diary entry, I will explore how this newfound freedom led me to confront old traumas, and how true healing begins when we decide to forgive ourselves. As we walk together on this journey, remember that each step taken is an affirmation of life, an act of courage that brings us closer to our true selves. Love should be an echo of acceptance, not a prison.